what is the purpose of CPT? As we just talked about, CPT stands for Curriculum Practical Training. This is an employment authorization that is associated with your academic pursuit. So CPT itself will allow students to gain practical experience in your field of study where you are making progress to complete your degree. Now, it is important that we highlighted the field of study. If you look at your I-20, that is also defined by your major. And you have to have a clear major before we could recommend CPT. So that's important milestone that every student need to be aware, particular undergrad students, because at Penn, we allow students to enter into bachelor program without declaring your major. But in order for us to recommend CPT for you, you have to have your major. So we want to highlight that. Yeah, next slide, please. Now, there are different types of CPT. And we want you to understand when we say CPT have to be an integral part of established curriculum, what does it mean? So the first category is the internship is required for all degree candidates, no matter you are domestic or international students. If you're in this particular program, then you have to obtain internship before you can graduate. This is a degree requirement, category. And at Penn, we have a few, but not a lot. The other category, which is mass majority of the CPT type, which is you're going to receive credit for your internship. The internship basis is taking a class as part of established curriculum. So for most of the CPT programs that Penn have established, they are based on course-based CPT. We do have a few program-related CPT that is mandate, and those are clearly kind of defined for all students. But for the course-related CPT, it has a lot more application and a lot more programs that is fitting in that category. Next slide, please. Now, to understand how Penn's CPT works, as we repeatedly talk about, CPT is associated with curriculum. And curriculum is defined by each individual academic school and department. So here, we listed some examples for you to fully understand how complex it could get into for each individual academic programs. We have engineering, we have C's undergrad, they have their rules. For engineering graduate students, they have a different set of rules. For arts and science at the college level, they have defined their CPT guidance. For Wharton undergrad students and Wharton MBA students, they also have different rules, and design and law school. So for this information, what we want you to realize is sometimes students come to ISSS and say, I want to have CPT. And often we will start by explaining, what's CPT about and what you need to do. However, the academic school going to be an important component of it because ISSS cannot create CPT out of thin air. It has to be closely defined by your academic program. And those URL that we listed here give you clear guidance in that particular program, what they are looking for. And it is possible sometimes you feel like you need to apply for CPT and you fit the CPT category. However, there is no clear defined CPT procedure yet. In those scenarios, feel free to reach out to ISSS, and ISSS going to also trying to communicate with your school or program and helping them to define CPT in a more structured way so that students can take advantage of that. Next slide, please. So in order for you to be eligible to apply for CPT, you have to be in valid F1 status. So if you are in CPT for the course-related category, then you have to be in that program for at least one full academic year. In some special cases, if it's required by your degree, then that exception can be lifted. So you could start CPT earlier. You also have to have a declared major and has to be in good academic standing. Sometimes students spend lots of energy to look for an internship. However, their academic grades and GPA was so poor that sometimes departments are not going to allow you to do CPT because you're not in good academic standing. You also have to have a job offer because CPT itself has to be associated with a particular job that already been defined. And then you can establish the clear connection between that internship and your course requirement or degree requirement. You have to register for CPT eligible course. And for those courses, there's certain program they have predefined CPT course. They also have independent study course that could be used for CPT eligibility course. And for PhD students, they also have dissertation and all those courses that needs to be sorted out between you and your academic department so that we have the basis for CPT recommendation. And also, the last very important part is the CPT employment itself has to be directly related to your major. So if you're doing an engineering study and you have computer science as your major, it's going to be very natural for you to do an internship in the computer related area. Now, if you have some other major, it is possible that you will do something that it's related, but that relationship has to be clearly established. So with that, I'm going to invite Dan to dive into the details about CPT application processes. Dan, take it away.
All right, thank you, Lily. So as Lily said, so now we've gone over the basics of what CPT is, the eligibility and stuff like that. We're gonna start looking at the actual application process. So once you have all of the eligibility worked out, how to go forward in obtaining the CPT authorization. So the first thing is you need your job offer letter. It needs to be an official letter, like letterhead, signature. You can't just I've seen different things like copied emails, and I'm always like, no, please get this on an official letterhead because it does need to be official. Once you have that, you need to register for your course. As Lily was speaking about just a bit ago, it's important to register for the proper course, and you should speak with your academic department because there's all kinds of different courses, whether it's like a dissertation course, a course that's specific to CPT, or something other than that. And really your department can speak to that better than we're able to. Once all that's taken care of, you just go into IPEN and you do the CPT application e-form. You upload the documents, like for example, the offer letter as part of that request. Once you submit that, that's going to go to your academic advisor first, who will confirm your eligibility, the course, and all the other things of that nature. And once they approve it, it goes to ISSS and it goes to a DSO like myself, and we take a look at it to ensure more from a immigration standpoint on how that applies. And we reach out to you and say, hey, maybe we want to change some things or we request some clarification. And once we get everything in order, we will go through with the CPT authorization, we'll approve it, and you'll get a new I-20. And on page 2 of that I-20, you'll see the CPT authorization on it. Next page. So what's that timeline look like? So the CPT application, it needs to match the course registration term. So I know that I always say like it needs to be within the semester of the course registration. So um, you can't request just kind of a blanket CPT time. And I personally, I always like to see specific dates on the offer letter, and that really helps to keep things clean and clear cut. And also you need to make sure for the application that you're applying with your e-form at least 2 weeks prior to your CPT internship beginning. That gives your academic team the proper amount of time to review it. It gives ISSS the proper amount of time to review it and get any confusion, any clarification we require so that everything's in order. You get your authorization before the CPT begins, because you cannot begin that CPT without the authorization. So just real quick, you see the boxes underneath, the basic process, which we've kind of, gone over a little bit. So the registration for the CPT course and securing an internship kind of happen together, or they're like prerequisites. Then you apply through IPEN, goes to the academic team, and then it goes to ISSS. So a little bit more on the CPT basics here. The CPT itself is before graduation. So if you're graduating this spring, you cannot have CPT this summer. You just can't, because it's only during your program. If you wanted to do some kind of employment, you're going to look at OPT, which we're not going to go into here, but CPT is definitely not going to happen after graduation. Also, and a benefit that helps the processing time of CPT is that ISSS approves it. You don't need to submit anything to like USCIS or Department of Labor or anything like that. Any government entity, it's all done pretty much in-house. A requirement that Lily was speaking to earlier is you must have completed an academic year of full-time enrollment, and that must be in the United States. You can't do like a program overseas and then come in and on CPT. Unless your program specifically requires it. But as Lily said earlier, that those programs are very, very few. It must be related to your major, and you cannot start working, even if it's unpaid. Please just don't engage in any employment until you have authorization, paid or unpaid. And that also includes orientation, training, anything of that nature until your CPT is approved and you obtain that I-20 and the dates are current. Please, I cannot stress that enough. Please do not engage in any employment without your authorization. A question that we get a lot here at ISSS is how CPT will impact any future statuses or benefits of various statuses. And really the only thing that it requests, CPT has an impact on is your OPT. And that's if you participate in 12 months of full-time CPT, you will not be eligible for any OPT benefits. So you cannot engage in any pre-completion or post-completion OPT. It's just gone. But CPT does not eat into any time. So if you, participate in like, a total of 12 months, for example, part-time CPT, you're fine. But it's the full-time full-time CPT that eliminates the OPT benefits. When it comes to other implications, these are kind of further down the line. For example, your STEM OPT, H-1B, legal permanent residence, or green card processing, or any other future statuses you may apply for or have a petitioner apply for you. You can get what's called an RFE, which is a request for evidence. So the government, while they're reviewing, for example, an H-1B petition, may say, we saw that you participated in some CPT and we'd like you to explain what it was, what you were doing, what academic requirement it fulfilled, anything of that nature, whatever the government kind of wants you to explain. So you want to make sure that you maintain any documentation, which you should be doing with any of your F1 documents, all your I-20s, EADs, visas. You should always maintain them anyway, but you definitely want to make sure the offer letter that you receive, any other evaluations that were relevant to the CPT. You want to hold on to them in case you do need them, because it's much easier to hold on to them when you have them rather than go looking for them later on. And just some important reminders and conditions here is that CPT can be part-time or full-time, but full-time CPT is only allowed when classes are not in session. So for example, this summer, so right now we're processing a lot of full-time CPT with different internships that are over the summer, but typically during the fall or spring, it typically should be part-time when you're taking classes together with those. Any changes in your CPT, you got to tell us. You have to tell us, especially because it's not through any government entity, even if it were to be, but because especially it's done in-house, you need to report all of those changes to us so we can take a look at it and make any adjustments or advise accordingly. And also, I know I get this question maybe daily, is if it is possible to have multiple employers at the same time. Yes, you can, but each one must have its own separate authorization. It's my understanding that you can do one e-form for multiple employers. That's my understanding. But in any case, each employer must have its own authorization. You cannot get one for employer A and assume that employer B is also okay. You need one for A, B, C, and stuff like that. Each one must be approved separately. Start dates, as we mentioned earlier, and end dates, for that matter, they need to be within the term that is requested. So, the summer internships, for the most part, need to be within the summer session. You can't really be bleeding into the fall semester without really a high level of scrutiny from multiple parties such as ISSS. With your CPT application, you will need a social security number if you don't already have one. But please be aware that your SSN does not determine your work authorization. So once you obtain an SSN, you do not have, a blanket authority or authorization to just continuously engage in employment. That's not what that is. So you just need to be careful about that as well. So if you have an SSN already, you still need to apply for CPT if that's what you're going to be doing. To obtain a social security number, if you don't already have one, you need your proof of employment, your I-20, which is endorsed for CPT, your passport, and your I-94. And you bring all of those to the Social Security office, which is in Center City. I do recommend, I believe they're still taking appointments. So if you can do that, I do recommend doing that because it will help. You just get there, do what you need to do, and then be done with it. But please be aware that you cannot apply for your Social Security number more than 30 days of the start date. It's just not permitted. And then, of course, if you want to see more information, you can always email us, and then there's the link on this slide here that you can always follow as well. And now we're going to go to some of the frequently asked questions. I think Lily's going to join me for that, so we can kind of go back and forth here.
Yep. Thank you, Dan. So I think in addition to the question we have on the PowerPoint, I also flagged the 2 additional questions from the Q&A live that we want to talk about this. So let's start with how long does CPT take to apply for?
So on our end, I would say, it's 3 to 5 business days for ISSS to process your request. So I'm kind of going to work backwards from your department. It's going to depend on their processing times and stuff like that. Me personally, whenever I advise students on CPT, I always recommend that they speak to their academic advisor first to make sure everything's in order. So that way, when they do receive the request, they already have an idea of what's going on. It helps that process go forward. The wild card, I guess, in all of this would be obtaining the internship itself. When you're applying for a job, how long does that take? I don't know. That's
Yeah.
up to employers and sending out resumes and interviewing and whatever else the employer requests.
And I'm going to emphasize something that Dan already said, that once you apply for CPT, you only started the process. You have to wait until ISSS issue a CPT I-20 to you. That completes the process, then you will have the authorization. So we need to emphasize to kind of make sure you have the full protection. In the past, we had students who think, oh, I registered for CPT course, that covers me. No, it doesn't. I started to submit an e-form through IPAN system, and I said I wanted to start on such day. That doesn't cover you either because you just submit the request asking for review. We haven't approved it. You're going to get your academic advisor approved, ISS advisor approved. The final proof is the CPT I-20. When you have the I-20, it basically shows you have been authorized and you're good to go.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Do you want
So
to
next,
ask me a question? Yep.
sure. So do I need to have a job offer before I apply for CPT?
Yes, you do need to. Sometimes students come to ISS and they will say, oh, I just had a terrific interview today, which is great. But if you're still waiting for the job offer, you're not ready to apply for CPT. You have to have a job offer in your hand. That is one of the conditions that you are eligible to apply for CPT. Now, I'm going to ask a question that is like collected live. This question is, if we're doing 3-year programs and have internships for 2 summers, can we enroll in CPT course twice?
I would say as long as it's part of your program and the academic department is okay with it. I can't see any limit on the immigration side, but that's all up to your specific academic program for them to say yes or no on that matter.
Yeah, I will say in general, the program, if by design needs you to do internship twice, of course you need to do the CPT course registration twice. The important thing that you need to make note of is one CPT with one course registration. We don't want you to kind of feel like I registered for CPT course before and I had CPT. Can I just use the other one? No, you will need to do another course registration before we can do the second CPT recommendation. Okay. Yep.
Sorry, I was gonna say I'm gonna follow and just read another one that we collected live here. Are remote jobs eligible for CPT, or does it have to have a specific location listed on the offer letter?
That's a great question. Nowadays, there are many jobs that, they have transitioned from the traditional, you go to office to be in like remote format. Now, the remote job itself, it has quite different types. What we will let you know is if you doing any work within United States, then you need to consider apply for CPT. If for summertime, you actually left US and you're doing some work outside of US, the scenario could change a little bit. But let's assume you're still staying in US and your company hired you, but somehow allow you to work just from your dorm. In such a situation, what do you need to do? You definitely need to apply for CPT. You need to provide, the offer letter, which will have the company's information. For the location that you're delivering your job, you could include that to be like your address in Philadelphia or some address that you're going to deliver that job. But the relationship still needs to be established that you are working for a specific company and to do a specific job in your field of study. All right, so I will give Dan an easy one. Do I need to send my CPT request to USCIS?
No. No,
Yeah.
you do not. Yep, CPT is done at ISSS. There's no need to send it to the government.
Yeah, that's the beauty of CPT, that it's a lot more controllable. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Gonna go to the next one. Can I start working after I submit CPT to ISSS?
No, we just talked about that a little bit. So if you submit the request to ISS, but ISS have not issued I-20 to you yet, you are not ready to work. Now, there are times that maybe for whatever reason, I mean, here we emphasize you need to submit the request to ISS as soon as possible, as early as possible. Let's say today is Wednesday or Tuesday, and you're supposed to work next Monday, and you're still waiting for ISS to approve the process. It is okay if you feel like it is getting very close and I want ISS to know this is a time-sensitive issue, you could write an inquiry to ISS, to your ISS advisor to ask about it. However, just only because you specify next Monday going to be your CPT start date, it doesn't give you the right to work. You have to have the authorization from ISS. You have to have the I-20 to show next Monday is your begin day for your CPT. Then you are covered.
I just want to add to that real quick. And just so you know, CPT cannot be backdated.
Yeah,
Like you can't be like, oh, well, can you move that, I did start last week. Can you put the date to show that I was okay to start last week? No, it's impossible. We cannot do that.
Yep, great point. Now, the next question is, I have submitted my CPT a while ago, but I haven't heard anything yet. What should I do next?
I think you just touched on that, Lily.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
mean,
wanted to add also, sometimes you thought you submit CPT to ISS, but actually it is still pending for approval from your academic advisor. Then maybe elaborate on that.
yeah, so sometimes I do get emails, saying, oh, it's been, a couple days. I haven't heard anything back about my CPT request. And I usually go, oh, okay, let me check it out. And more often than not, for me personally, is I will look up the application or the e-form and I won't see it in my queue. So, and I'll take a look at it and it will still be pending with the academic team or your academic advisor. So I always reach out. I'm like, well, we can't do anything yet because it's still sitting with your academic department. I recommend reaching out to them to see if they can take a look at it.
Yeah.
And then once they do, then it comes our way and then we can look at it. But I won't, and I know the advisors here, like we don't even see it appear in our system until it gets approved from your academic advisor.
Mm-hmm. In a related note, I wanted to ask you, if a student got an email from their school informing the e-form is approved, can they start working now?
From the department?
Mm-hmm.
No, don't do it. You need that I-20.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, you need that I-20. It's the I-20 and the dates need to be like you can't, even if you have that I-20, you need to check those dates that are on the I-20.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where I feel like we at ISSS can't stress enough the importance of not working without authorization or authorization being current. Because it is something that the government very much will look at depending on future statuses and situations. That is a big thing that comes up where the government will say like, hey, I noticed that you had CPT from this date to this date, but for some reason, whatever it is, we think you worked outside of those dates. And now you got to prove that you didn't. And that's a big thing for the government.
Yeah. So, it is possible that you sometimes get a confirmation to say, Wharton undergrad already approved your request. That is not the final approval. The final approval has to come from ISS.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's see. Next one is I just got an Oh, we just did that one. Okay, so can I work with two employers under one CPT request?
So that's a great question. When you say under one CPT request, normally CPT go with term. So let's say this is a CPT for summer 2024. During the summer period, can you work for two employers? It is possible to work for two employers. However, you need to get both employers to be specified in our CPT approval. Now, what we have seen how the situation pan out is sometimes it's going to be for the same period, but students have two part-time employment, two part-time employer that they work for. And it is fine, you collected two job offer, and we recommend both CPT. There are times during the summer period, students actually have divided that it's going to have one period. The first month they work for one employer, and then the second month they work for another employer. Both are full-time. That is allowed as well. But again, you need to be authorized. So for the first employer for that particular period, it needs to be reflected on the CPT I-20. Also, the second CPT needs to be reflected with the employer information as well. So I think we have more questions on the live channel, so I'm going to ask this one. This is a student's question. I see on the website that there is a full-time CPT option, academic field studies. Is such a full-time CPT during non-summer allowed? So this is in particular for engineering students. Dan, do you want me to answer that, or you?
Yeah, I think you would probably be better
Okay.
able to answer that. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so the academic field study is a particular track, graduate and engineering graduate program, they specifically define that. So this is not something that it's applicable to other schools. For instance, if you're from GSE or design, maybe this is not something that they will honor. But let's say you are a graduate student from engineering and you're qualified to be put on academic field study. Because for that particular track, they do define how many courses you have been taken, what's the minimum GPA level that you have met, and also, the job itself has to be in the field of study. If you're qualified to be put on academic field study, then it is possible that you will have not only summer CPT, but also they will extend for the immediate fall semester to allow you to do full-time CPT as well under academic field studies. So it is possible for engineering graduate students, but it's not a program available for other schools. So I think we can move on to the next one. Let me read this. I will graduate in August. I'm in an offering process. The employer wants me to start with an internship first and then become a full-time employee after graduation. Should I apply for both CPT and OPT? That's a tricky question. Do you want to start and I can add to yours, Dan?
Sure. I mean, yeah, I think it is really tricky because for me, I'm trying to think there's different factors involved. Like the first thing that comes to my mind is like what degree level, like, and then bridging CPT and OPT is also a concern I have.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what I want to do first in that.
Yeah, all those are very important points.
Yeah.
Now, first of all, if you have CPT and OPT, I mean, this topic is mainly about CPT, so we didn't touch on the OPT part. OPT stands for optional practical training. Now, OPT itself It is solely for the internship purpose. So it doesn't require you to take a class or, to establish the degree requirement from that aspect. In this particular scenario, if the employer have a clear goal that it is not related to your academic study, but it's more of offering you a job, OPT is a better category. Also, if this is your last semester, typically, unless this is a degree requirement, that they will need you to finish CPT in order for you to obtain the degree, then we don't normally recommend last semester CPT because from the government point of view, when they see you have CPT and then you immediately take on OPT and continue to work for the same employer, what they have envisioned in that scenario is you may not have true academic needs. You're only just doing that for bridge of employment. And that is a red flag that you could later on get RFE, request for evidence, or additional inquiries when you apply for STEM OPT, when you apply for H-1B down the road. So we don't recommend you to do that if it's not because of academic need for you to do CPT. In that particular scenario, hypothetically say, you could apply for pre-completion OPT before you graduate, and then apply for post-completion OPT after you graduate. But the complication is you need to deal with USCIS twice, and also you will need to pay fee twice, and So for your situation, we recommend you to have a one-on-one appointment with your ISSS assigned advisor, and then we can dive into your scenario and give you better assessment.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, there were too many, I think, variables to really be able to answer it here.
All right. The next question is, does a full-time summer CPT affect the student's OPT eligibility?
So no, but also, so the only time that CPT affects your OPT is if you accrue a total of 12 months of full-time CPT. So if this full-time summer CPT is gonna put you over the 12 months, then yes, you'll be ineligible for OPT. But most situations, it's the summer CPT, it's limited to like two months, for example. And if that's the only CPT that you're going to be participating in during your program, then it won't impact your OPT at all. It's just when you have multiple CPTs that are full-time, you got to start adding them up to make sure that they're not getting to that 12-month mark.
Yeah.
I'll read the next one here. I have a field placement course in the summer term. That means I will work with this field placement full-time in the summer. Should I apply for full-time CPT or part-time CPT?
So when you determine what type of CPT you need to apply for, it matters how many hours you're going to work per week. If they require you to work more than 20 hours per week, you're going to apply for full-time CPT. If it's less than 20 hours per week, then you can apply for part-time CPT.
Yeah. I'm going to add to that real quick. It's important because it's a question I get a lot of times is part-time and full-time for like CPT, for example, defined by ISSS and SEVP and stuff like that, is different than part-time for an employer. So an employer might say like, you're going to be working part-time, and that means I'm going to have you working, or part-time, I'm going to have you working 25 hours per week. But for ISSS, 25 means full-time. So you need to be careful with that, with your authorization.
Correct. Yes. Excellent point.
Because there will be a gap, right, between you end up your OPT.
So the next question is, I am a graduate student. Is my PI the only person who is eligible to approve my CPT? Will graduate chair's approval also works?
Yeah.
I would say it's the PI. I'm not sure if the graduate chair would would be the correct person to send it to. This might be something, I mean, I don't want to speak for them, to be honest with you. But I would say if you're unsure, you might just want to like honestly just send them a message or an email and just be like, I'm applying for CPT. Would you be the correct person that I should send this to? And they'll let you know. I just don't want to speak on their behalf.
And also it matters which school you are from. Like for instance, if you're engineering student, you may have your PI, but the engineering students, they have a central academic unit to approve all the CPT. So what typically works is you will start your conversation with your PI, and certainly they need to be supportive. And then you will find out from the school point of view, do they have central office to process that? And if you're unsure about the process, you could always start with ISS and we can give you some pointers. But eventually, there's a academic unit advisor needs to be the key person approve the second level e-form in order for ISS to obtain the fully completed CPT and grant you the permission.
Yeah.
Read the next one.
Mhm.
Go. I am already in the midst of applying for CPT in accordance with the process I received from my electrical engineering program coordinator. Is the ISSS process in addition to that process?
So if you only worked with, like in your situation, it probably is from CES, the engineering school. When you say you approve, you have the approval from the program coordinator, it is possible that you only started part of the process. Again, in order for you to go through the whole process, you will need to be able to register for the CPT course and submit the e-form through IPEN. The e-form going to be routed to engineering school to get their approval and then return back to ISS. And then ISS going to have advisor process the request and issue you a CPT I-20. So when you ask if ISS process in addition to the process, I would say the process itself, they're intertwined. If you don't have schools support, then there's no ISS approval. But if you only have your school's approval, does not go through the full completion of ISS process, you won't have CPT I-20. Then you don't have the CPT approval either. So you need to follow through all those steps that we described, ensure you have a CPT I-20 in your hand. Then you're all set. Okay. So, it seems this is a follow-up question.
Yeah.
So I am a graduate student from CES. Does AFS, that's academic field study, requires a specific program? Who do you recommend I talk to about AFS? So, Dan, do you want me to answer that, or you can?
Yeah, you would be able to. I think you answered, if I
Mhm.
know the question, yeah, if you want to
Yeah.
add to that.
So for academic field of study, if you're from engineering master program, you typically going to start with either Elise Edwards or Tori. There are a few scenario, maybe student who is in PhD, they will do AFS, but it's not common. Typically, it's master student. If you're a master student, you will start with either Elise or Tori from engineering. Okay, let's move on.
Yep.
Are we allowed to do part-time CPT in the last semester before graduation?
We did touch on this a little bit. It's, I mean, it is, It's similar to the situation where we discussed. If you're going to be looking at OPT, you need to be careful if, like, you know, you're going to be with the same employer. And then of course, what does your program permit with regards to last semester CPT? I believe I'm correct in that most programs say no last semester CPT, just to kind of avoid that situation as well. But I think, you know, I would say it's program specific, but I don't know, Lily, you can tell me if I'm right or wrong, but I feel like most programs say no last semester CPT.
Yeah. Again, CPT itself, it's not designed for you to just, you know, have a job and I want to do it, and I want to do it part-time. That was not the main reason we could apply and authorize you CPT. It needs to have an academic reason. So let's say if it is a degree program and you do need to have the last, you know, a push of internship in order to fulfill the requirement, then I would say yes, there's a possibility to do it. Most of the time, if it's your last semester, then CPT is not direct, you know, related. And we also cautioned you that you need to be extra careful to not to use CPT as a bridge for employment. So in other words, if this is the employer you intend to work for after your graduation, then you should not work for this employer part-time during your last semester. Because by doing so, you literally put yourself in the red alert and invite problem for your future petition with USCIS. Okay. The next question, I am from School of Arts and Science and will graduate in August. What does pre-OPT mean? Can I work as an intern before I graduate with pre-completion OPT?
Not sure how in depth we want to go. This is a more OPT related, but basically pre-completion, there's two types of OPT. There's pre-completion and post-completion. Pre-completion is before you graduate, post-completion is after. And if you know, if you apply for a pre-completion OPT, that means you're applying for work authorization for that period of time. So if you were to apply for it, then you can do that. But I think this is a advising session question.
Yeah, I agree. I think in theory it's possible, but it's very nuanced. You have to fully understand the implication before you take that route.
Yeah. All right, grab the next one. Let's see. Can I ask a question about OPT? I understand we need to maintain a full-time status for one full academic year. Does that require 6 CUs, specifically for the last semester if we have less than 3 CUs before graduation? I'm asking because I may take an absence of leave before the last academic year. That's
Again, you know, you probably will be better off attend an OPT session. But in general, when we say you need to maintain full-time study for one full academic year, in the normal sense, you need to have minimum 3 CU each semester. With the exception of last semester, you do need to request for reduced course load authorization based on it's your last semester to make it equivalent to the full-time in the immigration eyes. But if you're going to take a leave of absence, you do need to, you know, meet with ISSS advisor and evaluate when are you going to take a leave, and when you come back, do you have enough courses that will carry you through with 2 full academic semesters so that you will be eligible for OPT again.
yeah.
That's
Anytime. Oh,
yeah.
sorry. Go ahead, Lily. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead then.
I was just going to add real quick, like anytime there's a leave of absence involved, I would definitely schedule an appointment with your advisor to go over that specific situation, what it means, what the consequences are, CPT, OPT, all kinds, because there's so many different things for each specific situation.
Mhm. All right. So I think we come down to the last question.
Mhm.
Is the CPT approval I-20 the one that I should use for all future scenarios? Well, I need to show my I-20. In other words, if I'm issued an updated I-20 from ISS, well, my old I-20 automatically expires.
So, okay, so I'm gonna kind of do this backwards in the way that they were asked. So will my old I-20 automatically expire? So technically not, because your I-20 is just kind of the paper representation of your official record, which lives in CVIS, which is an online system. So it technically doesn't expire. It's just,
Mhm.
yeah, it doesn't expire. And then I'm going to go to the next one, CPT approved I-20. Should I use for all future scenarios? So I always say use your most updated or most recently issued I-20 where you need to show your I-20 for whether that be for your CPT authorization when you go to start your job. Obviously, you're going to want to show that one. If you travel and you have a travel signature on that one, that's valid and it's the most recent one you've been issued, use that one. But your I-20 and your CVIS record is, oh, your I-20 itself is not always changing, but your online record is for various reasons. So if that's the most recent one you have, use that one. But you'll get a new I-20 for something else, and then you're going to want to use that. I will say this, because this to me has I feel like it's related with the idea of expiring I-20s. Those documents that we send you, the I-20s, your visas and stuff like that, you should always keep them in your records. I had a former boss who would always say that because F stands for forever. So even though you think this status or these documents are kind of like, oh, I don't need this one anymore, you would be surprised how many people and how many emails I get a day going, I just got a request. I need all my I-20s. And I'm like, okay, well, I can give you to so many records. And yeah, but I've been here, I'm in my PhD, but I started my undergrad. I'm like, yeah, I can't help you with those. You got to talk to those schools. They may or may not have those records. So at a minimum, I'm not saying, you need to carry them all with you all the time, but I would say at a minimum, keep a digital copy of all of them and keep them organized, please. They will come up, believe it or not, that will come up.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the F stands forever, easy for you to remember.
Yeah, I
It
like
is,
that.
yeah, because
taking it from
nowadays it's easier to digitalize document, right? Do a scan, take a picture, and just save it in the, one of the folders. You don't need to look at it daily, but when you need it, it's there.